It takes just one frame, a single flicker, imperceptible to the casual eye, buried in the reel like a splinter in the skin of cinema. Sometimes it's an image that doesn't belong to the narrative. Sometimes it's a face that wasn't in the casting list. And sometimes it's something far worse, a fragment that no one can explain and no one remembers filming. In the analog age, filmmakers had near total control over their reels, or so they thought. Editors combed through footage, studio executives reviewed every cut, and censors sharpened their scissors. Yet somehow, slivers of film made it to final release, images that feel like mistakes but move with the precision of intention. A woman's scream spliced into a scene that had none, a flash of an unfamiliar corridor in a house that never had one. A child's drawing taped to a wall that doesn't exist, and then they vanish. In subsequent releases, remastered editions, and digital copies, these fragments are gone, replaced, denied, forgotten. Some say these anomalies were just post-production mishaps. Others whisper that they were hidden signatures encrypted by editors, slipped in by disgruntled crew, or embedded with intent far more disturbing. Were they messages, warnings, accidents of paranoia? Tonight, we're stepping into the dark space between the frames, a space where reality stutters, logic cracks, and film becomes something uncomfortably alive. These are 15 films that contain brief moments no one was supposed to notice. But once you do, you can't unsee them. So ask yourself, what if a single frame can tell a truth no one was ready to see? 8mm, 1999. Joel Schumacher's descent into the underworld of snuff films was never subtle, but one frame, buried in the footage Nicolas Cage's character uncovers, crosses into something the narrative never directly addresses. During a silent reel marked discarded, the screen cuts to black, and for a single frame, an elderly woman stares into the camera, her expression neutral, her surroundings sterile. She is not a victim, not a performer, just there. This frame appears only in test screenings and was never included in the final cut. A studio leak years later confirmed it had no shooting day, no cast listing, and no explanation in the editing notes. It was digitally erased from all retail editions. Online speculation exploded. Was she an Easter egg? A reference to another Schumacher film? Or worse, a real person caught in the crossfire of obsession and fiction? What unsettles most is her calmness. In a film full of violence and screams, she says nothing, she doesn't move, but she looks directly into the lens and by extension, into us. In a story about watching horror, was this the only moment where horror watched back? Don't Look Now, 1973. Nicholas Roeg's disorienting tale of grief and second sight is full of visual tricks, flash forwards, and reverse foreshadowing. But one image too brief to be categorized has haunted the few who've caught it. Just before the final revelation in the Venetian crypt, the screen flashes white, and for a single frame, the body of Christine, the drowned daughter, is seen lying on a slab covered in rose petals. There is no such shot anywhere else in the film. Her body is never explicitly shown, and the narrative never returns to that visual. This frame appears only in early British 35mm releases and was reportedly removed after initial screenings due to concerns it spoiled the ambiguous tone. But those who saw it remember how serene and unsettling it felt, like a visual sigh or an intrusion from a version of the story where grief didn't spiral into madness. Was it a misfired catharsis, a hidden goodbye, or an editor's moment of mercy, later censored for being too compassionate? What does it mean when the most human moment in a horror film is the one no one was meant to see? Videodrome, 1983. David Cronenberg's masterpiece about media and mutation is a hallucination by design, but even within its surrealism, there is a frame that does not obey. Near the midpoint, as Max Wren watches a corrupted broadcast, a single image breaks the transmission. A man strapped to a chair, covered in static, screaming silently. He's not a character in the film. He never appears again. This frame, documented by a handful of collectors who owned rare Canadian Betamax tapes, was not in theatrical screenings or later home releases. When fans slowed the footage frame by frame, they discovered the image carried a different color grading and camera stock, as if from another film entirely. Cronenberg, a meticulous visual architect, has denied the frame was intentional, but some believe it was a leftover insert from an experimental short he was producing concurrently. Others argue it was an editor's mistake or a studio technician leaving behind a grim calling card. In a film about losing control of your own perception, what happens when the film itself begins inserting things even the director didn't authorize? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. There's brutality in every corner of this film, but one moment feels more surgical than savage. During a pan across the bone-filled room early in the movie, one frame includes a black and white photo taped to the wall. It's barely visible. It doesn't match the production design. It's of a young man smiling, in military uniform. This frame is present only in certain 16mm grindhouse prints circulated in the late 1970 seconds. In restored editions, the wall is empty. Tobe Hooper never mentioned the photo. Cast and crew interviews never acknowledge it. Some have theorized it was a set decoration nod to a crew member's relative. Others suggest something darker, that the photo was added after release by a projectionist or distributor, embedding their own memorial or warning. But why a single frame? Why only in prints that toured exploitation theaters? The film is about meat, memory, and American violence. Was this photo the only moment of truth in a movie otherwise caked in lies? Possession 1981. Andrzej Żuławski's fever dream descent into madness and doubling was already chaotic. But in one sequence, as Isabella Gianni's character writhes in a tunnel, covered in blood and sweat, a flash of something else breaks through. A city skyline, modern, unfamiliar, and eerily silent. This one frame, a still shot of what appears to be East Berlin at night, is completely disconnected from the scene. It appears in only one known release, a rare VHS copy distributed in France in 1982. Fans speculated it was symbolic, representing a fractured psyche or a break in timeline. But Żuławski, when shown the frame years later, looked puzzled and said, "That was not my film." No official cut includes it today. It's absent from Blu-ray restorations and Criterion editions, yet the visual persists in archived bootlegs, an intrusion that feels too deliberate to be random. Was it a mistake, a political statement, or a spectral edit made by someone else entirely? In a film about possession, whose hands were actually on the reel? The Blair Witch Project, 1999. A film defined by what it doesn't show may have shown too much. In the chaos of the film's final moments, as the camera tumbles through the dilapidated house in Burkittsville, a brief image flashes between two shots, not of the house, not of the characters, but of a wooded clearing, drenched in daylight. And in the center, a crude stick figure, burning. The shot doesn't fit the time of day, it doesn't match the film's setting, and it appears in only one known theatrical reel, a version that was reportedly used in early college tour screenings before wide release. The moment lasts less than a second, and most audiences never saw it. But those who did describe it with unnerving consistency. Artisan Entertainment has never acknowledged the frame. The directors deny its inclusion. Some say it was a projectionist prank. Others believe it was a raw insert, a discarded moment from the promotional ARG campaign that bled into the film itself. If a movie is about getting lost in the woods, what does it mean when even the film stock forgets where it's supposed to be? Hereditary, 2018. Ari Aster's debut film is filled with dread, symbols, and trauma. But in one early moment during a shot of the family home's living room, something sits in the corner, above the crown molding. It's not addressed. It's not part of any known sigil or ritual. And it appears for less than a second, fading as the camera shifts. In Reddit freeze frames, the image resembles a figure crouched like a gargoyle humanoid, but not quite. It was present in some theatrical releases but is suspiciously missing from several international Blu-rays. Aster, known for obsessing over mise-en-scène, hasn't acknowledged it publicly. When asked about the hidden symbols, he spoke only about the planned ones. Theories abound. An early version of Paymon's form, a crew member in costume, a last-minute VFX insert that was pulled during re-release. Whatever it wasn't meant to be there long. But what kind of horror relies on hiding its truest face where only the most attentive would ever find it? Peeping Tom, 1960. Long before found footage horror, Michael Powell's Peeping Tom blurred the line between viewer and voyeur. But somewhere within its meticulous frames lies a moment that breaks even that contract, a freeze-frame image inserted during a transition, showing a completely different victim than any scene in the film. It flashes between reel changes, a quick splice during a camera pan, and appears only in select UK theatrical prints. The face is bloodied, eyes wide, lit with a lighting style inconsistent with the rest of the film. Some say it was part of an earlier version of the script, a victim that was eventually removed. Others believe it was Powell's defiance inserting one last shock that the censors couldn't catch. What's troubling is that this frame appears on no promotional material, no stills, and no restoration master. Was it a ghost of the director's intent, or a scene that the audience was never meant to fully register? Mulholland Drive, 2001. David Lynch doesn't deal in answers, he builds mazes. But even in his layered dream logic, there's a moment that feels misplaced, even for Lynch. It occurs during the infamous Club Silencio sequence, a flash, almost subliminal, of a photograph. A young woman, smiling. Then her face deforms subtly, digitally, as if melting under invisible pressure. One frame later, the film resumes. No one in the audience acknowledges it. The film never references the image. And yet, in certain early theatrical prints, viewers reported the disturbing photo not as part of a dream sequence, but buried in a scene that already questioned reality. It doesn't appear in DVD or streaming editions. Lynch, famously silent on interpretation, has refused to comment. Some say the frame was an editing test left in by accident. Others believe it was intentionally inserted as a subconscious trigger, a visual manifestation of memory decay or identity collapse. But here's the real question. If the story was about a woman losing herself, who was that face, and why wasn't she in the script at all? Event Horizon 1997. When the film's characters glimpsed hell, so did the audience for a fraction of a second. Event Horizon was notorious for its intense visuals and cut footage, but one frame remains legendary, an extreme close-up of a mutilated face screaming directly into the lens, appearing during a montage of chaos, and then gone. This frame appears only in certain international cuts. In some versions, it was excised entirely due to ratings concerns. In others, it was blurred or masked by motion blur. But in uncut reels viewed at test screenings, audience members reportedly gasped not at the gore, but at the precision of the intrusion. The face doesn't belong to any known character. It looks real, it doesn't blink. Rumors persist that this frame came from found footage accidentally mixed into the edit. Paul W.S. Anderson has never clarified its origin. Some fans believe it was a real morgue photo, mistakenly or intentionally used. Others insist it was fabricated to disturb on a subconscious level. Either way, once seen, it cannot be forgotten. Was this frame a lost piece of the film, or a glimpse into something far more real than fiction allows? The Shining 1980. Kubrick was a perfectionist. Every frame in The Shining was choreographed with mathematical precision. So when something appears that breaks that perfection, it doesn't feel accidental, it feels like an intrusion. In one early hallway shot, as Danny rides his tricycle past room 237, a mirror flashes briefly on the wall. But for just a single frame, the mirror seems to reflect not Danny, but a second child, standing still, watching. The clothing doesn't match, the posture is wrong, and when the scene resumes, there's nothing there. This alleged frame has never been confirmed by Warner Brothers, but film scholars and obsessive fans have argued over its existence for decades. Some say it was an intentional ghost image Kubrick buried as part of the Overlook's timeline distortion. Others claim it was a visual artifact, the result of an old editing splice. Yet, there's something chilling in how many viewers recall that brief reflection, even if they can't prove it's real. Did Kubrick create a ghost no one could fully see? Or did the film manifest one on its own? Session 9-2001. It's one of the quietest horror films ever made, and perhaps because of that silence, something slipped in unnoticed. In one of the empty corridors of the abandoned Danvers State Hospital, a shot lingers just a beat too long, and for a single frame, behind a cracked door, a man appears, or a figure that only looks like one. Session 9, directed by Brad Anderson, was shot on location in a real, decaying asylum, no sets, no CGI. The film thrives on psychological suggestion, environmental unease, and audio recordings that hint at a fractured mind. But what many viewers don't realize is that the original DVD release included one frame in the corridor sequence that's not in any digital version since. That frame shows something unnatural, a silhouette, slightly hunched, its eyes seemingly reflective, like caught in a flash. Fans discovered it when freeze-framing old discs, and soon it became a niche obsession in online horror forums. Was it a crew member accidentally caught, an Easter egg, or something that was never meant to be seen? When asked, the director merely responded, "Danvers had a way of adding things to your shoot you didn't plan for." Was it a glitch in the film, or a presence still lingering in the hospital long after the cameras left? Fight Club 1999. You were warned not to talk about Fight Club, but no one warned you about the frames you didn't see. Long before the final twist landed, director David Fincher had already begun to lace the film with subliminal shots. Most famously, flashes of Tyler Durden, half a second long, appearing in the background before his character is ever introduced. But there's one insertion that even Fincher hasn't publicly addressed: a single frame of a grinning man, standing naked in a doorway, his eyes locked directly into the lens. It appears between scene cuts when Edward Norton's character flips through channels in a hotel room. It lasts less than 24 frames. It's not Brad Pitt, and it's not part of the story. Some have claimed it was a leftover reel splice from another subliminal gag. Others believe it was inserted without Fincher's knowledge. Bootleg VHS copies from early screeners include it, but the shot is missing from most official releases. When fans asked about it during Q&A screenings, the production team allegedly deflected with jokes. But the image is real, the stare is deliberate, and the fact that no one claims ownership makes it feel even more intimate and more violating. Was it a joke, a dare, or something Fincher wanted us to find only if we were truly paying attention? The Ring, 2002. In a film already defined by cursed visuals, one particular frame has haunted viewers far more than the iconic well. It's not part of the cursed videotape. It's not part of the flashbacks. It's a sudden cutaway, lasting less than a second, to a decaying figure submerged in water, eyes open, mouth agape, in a setting that doesn't match anything else in the film. The Ring, Gore Verbinski's chilling remake of the Japanese Ringu, was praised for its atmospheric dread and fragmented storytelling. But in the 2002 theatrical release, some audiences reported a phantom insert, a blink and miss. It's shot during a scene where Rachel researches the tape's origin. It never reappears in any Blu-ray or streaming version. No editor has confirmed its existence. No frame grabs have surfaced that aren't blurry or ambiguous. And yet, online discussion boards from 2003 to 2006 are littered with references to the drowned girl in the wrong room. Some even recall specific sound design cues, a wet, sucking gasp that accompanied it. Was it a subliminal trick, a corrupted reel, or a creative choice someone later regretted? Whatever it was, it doesn't exist anymore, at least not officially. But if no one admits it was there, why do so many people remember it? The Exorcist 3, 1990. You blink, and she's already there, standing at the edge of the hallway, her face shrouded in gauze, moving faster than human motion should allow. In a film known for its deliberate pacing, one frame moved like a glitch in the Matrix, unsettling, sudden, and unexplained. The Exorcist 3, directed by William Peter Blatty, is a slow-burning psychological descent more restrained than its predecessor, but arguably more cerebral. Yet buried within a chilling hospital corridor scene is a moment that no one, not even longtime fans, can agree on. A ghostly nurse figure appears for only a fraction of a second, not in the long-take scare that made the scene famous, but earlier during a quiet pan, she's motionless, until she isn't. This fragment only appears in early theatrical reels. It's absent from remastered editions, and even director commentaries skip over it entirely. Online forums have obsessed over it for years, with some suggesting it was an early insert later pulled for pacing. Others claim it was never there, a case of collective hallucination caused by the film's psychological intensity. But those who've seen it remember it vividly. Was it a trick of light, a splice error, or a hidden presence that made its way in without permission? Some stories were never meant to be told in full, some images were never meant to be captured, and some frames, the ones that flicker once, then vanish forever, might be the only moments that matter. They weren't part of the plot. They weren't in the script, but they remained, etched between cuts, surviving through rumor, whisper, and memory. In a medium obsessed with control of light, timing, narrative, these rogue fragments remind us that cinema is still haunted by the uncontrollable. Maybe they were accidents, maybe they were warnings, maybe they were truths slipped in by hands we'll never identify. But one question remains. If no one remembers filming them, who put them there? Which of these frames unsettled you the most? Have you ever seen something on screen that wasn't supposed to be there and no one else believed you? Let us know in the comments, and if you're drawn to the places where film breaks, flickers, and fractures, subscribe. We'll be waiting in the next reel.